Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we continue our discussion on the Fall of Haojing, and this time we'll dive into the most well-known version of the story, the version that most Chinese people have heard. In China, if you ask someone about the Fall of Haojing, they might not recognize the name right away. But if you mention a particular story, they'll immediately know what you're talking about. This story is called 1,000 Gold Coins for a Smile, or the Beacon Fire Prank. The story version of the Fall of Haojing is pretty simple. The main character is the Zhou King, King You of Zhou. According to historical records, the moment he ascended the throne, natural disasters struck, and many believed this was an omen of the dynasty's downfall. Sure enough, King Yu became obsessed with a beautiful woman named Bao Si, dismissed loyal ministers, and appointed corrupt officials like Guo Shifu. Step by step, he led his kingdom to destruction. Sound familiar? This is the classic doomed ruler trope, as if fate had already decided that he would lose his kingdom. One of the most famous parts of this story is 1,000 gold coins for a smile and the beacon fire prank. It's said that after Bao Si entered the palace, she never smiled. King Yu was desperate to make her laugh, so he issued a decree. Whoever can make Bao Si smile will be rewarded with 1,000 gold coins. Now, let's clarify something. 1,000 gold coins for a smile doesn't mean the king was just paying for someone to tell jokes. Otherwise, he could have hired a comedian or a storyteller, or even watched a medieval version of stand-up comedy. If that didn't work, he should have called a doctor. Maybe Bao Si had some kind of facial paralysis. The truth is, King Yu didn't just want to make her laugh. He wanted her to like him. So who ended up taking the 1,000 gold coins? The answer, Guo Shifu, the so-called evil minister. He advised King Yu, "Your Majesty, you are the son of heaven. If Bao Si doesn't admire you yet, it's because you haven't shown her your power. Once she sees your authority, she will admire you. And when she admires you, she'll naturally smile." King, you thought this made sense. But how exactly was he supposed to showcase his power? Guo Shifu suggested, "Your Majesty, let's go to Mount Li and light the beacon fires to summon the vassal lords." At the time, beacon towers were part of the early warning system. When lit, they signaled an enemy invasion, and vassal lords were obligated to rush to the capital with their armies. King Yu agreed to this plan and ordered the beacon fires to be lit. As expected, the lords arrived in full force, chariots rolling, soldiers shouting, horses galloping. But when they reached the capital, they found no enemy, just the king playing a prank. No one dared complain out loud, but they were certainly cursing him in their hearts. Still, as loyal subjects, they had no choice but to pack up and return home. And Bao Si? She was just the daughter of a minor noble and had probably never seen a military force of this scale before. Thousands of soldiers storming in at her husband's command. That was impressive. If she had ever ridden a packed subway during rush hour, or visited a crowded tourist attraction, she might not have been so amazed, but in her world, this was spectacular. Seeing this grand display of power, she was so surprised that she actually smiled. King Yu was thrilled. His plan had worked. In fact, he was so pleased with himself that he decided this was a great way to show his power. The problem came later when a real enemy, the nomadic Quanrong tribe, attacked. King Yu lit the beacon fires again, but this time, none of the lords came. They thought it was just another one of his pranks, so they ignored him. As a result, the Quanrong army stormed into Haojing, killed King Yu, and brought the Western Zhou dynasty to an end. This story is often used to teach children. Moral lesson: don't lie, and definitely don't make lying a habit. But historians weren't trying to teach kids a life lesson. They were explaining something much more important. The King of Zhou had absolute power. So why, when he needed help the most, did no one come to his aid? In ancient China, the rules were strict. If a king summoned a vassal once and they didn't show up, they got a warning. The second time, their land was reduced. The third time, the king would send an army to destroy them. That's probably where the Chinese saying, 3 times is the limit, comes from. But in reality, when King Yu died, no one even bothered to retrieve his body. The central Chinese lords were too busy with their own problems, and none of them avenged him. Even his son, who fled to Luoyang and became King Ping of Zhou, simply handed the abandoned land over to the Qin people, saying, "This land is yours now. If you want to fight the Quan Rong for it, go ahead. Whatever you win is yours." And then, he never looked back. Was this really the fate of a once all-powerful king? So the beacon fire prank isn't just a story about a foolish ruler. It's an attempt to explain the collapse of the Zhou dynasty's authority. But here's the question: was this story even true? First, did beacon towers even exist during the Zhou dynasty? Beacon towers became common during the Han dynasty, but they weren't widely used in the Western Zhou period. According to Zhuo Zhuan, there were some dirt platforms on Mount Li, but those were for drums. The real emergency system was drum signals, not beacon fires, to communicate with Haojing. Second, the idea of vassals rushing to protect the king doesn't quite add up. In reality, vassal states needed an official escort from the king to enter the capital. The Zhou kings were more afraid of their own vassals than of the barbarians. So from the beacon towers to the vassals coming to the rescue, the entire story is likely a fabrication. As for 1,000 gold coins for a smile, its authenticity is even more doubtful. It's likely that even ancient historians didn't bother verifying it. And yet, this well-known tale has been passed down through generations, even though it probably never happened. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll continue unraveling the history of the Qin Empire in the next episode.